911. Is this a police, fire, or medical emergency?
Medical.
Tell me what happened.
I just came home. My roommate, we went out together. She came home a while ago, and it's just not moving.
Okay, so she's unresponsive?
Completely.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
She's got blood all over her.
Is she breathing?
No, there's nothing.
You can't see her breathing at all?
No, there's nothing.
Listen carefully. I need you to place the heel of your hand on the breastbone in the center of her chest. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
This is Adrianne Robert's story, a young woman with rare talent, a warm heart, and a way of dreaming big that you don't see every day. People didn't just remember her because she was engaged and excited for her next chapter. They remembered her because you couldn't forget her if you tried. Her dad, Mark, tried to capture who she was, but the words always felt too small for Adrianne. He'd say things like, she loved life, her smile was infectious. Simple stuff, but when you talked to anyone who'd met her, they all said the same thing. She just had this energy that would light up any space, and you felt it, even before you realized what made her different. Adrianne grew up in Brunswick, born on January 4, 1983. She graduated with Leavitt High's class of 2001 and kept going, earning her degree at the University of Maine at Augusta in 2005. She was sharp, especially when it came to art and visual design. That was her thing, and it took her places. By the mid-2000s, you'd find Adrianne at the Sun Journal in Lewiston, Maine, designing pages and shaping how stories looked. She was carving out a path for herself. But for her, Maine felt limited. Beautiful, yes, but it never quite matched the ambitions she carried with her. So in 2007, at age 24, she did what a lot of people dream about but never actually do. She packed her car and headed south for Clearwater, Florida. No more gray winters. She wanted warmth, but more than that, she wanted a shot at something bigger. Clearwater had energy, possibilities, sunshine. Adrianne dove right in. Down there, she hung on to her art, working as a graphic designer, and kept learning and signed up for more classes at the University of South Florida. She settled into a townhouse with her roommate, Jay LeFew, and started feeling like Clearwater was home. She found her people, and then she found Justin Pounders. They started dating, and by the summer of 2012, they were thinking about a future together. They picked out a house. They circled a date on the calendar for moving in. Mid-July 2012. Everything felt ready to begin. By Friday night, July 13, 2012, Adrianne felt like her life had finally lined up the way she wanted. She and Jay had been roommates for years and had settled into an easy, familiar groove. The kind of friendship where you borrow stuff without asking and laugh about the same old jokes. But their time together was almost up. Adrianne was moving out the next day. Naturally, they wanted one last night out. They'd already started drinking at the apartment, and when the idea came up to hit Diamond Dolls, a strip club a little over a mile away, they knew better than to drive. The Florida summer was warm and sticky, so they just walked. They got to Diamond Dolls around 10:30 p.m. Once inside, the night just drifted along, the way nights in bars often do. Adrianne and Jay ended up talking to a guy at the bar. He was outgoing, easy to talk to. Nothing about him raised any red flags. They chatted and drank, letting the hours slide by. But what none of them realized was that this guy had already been at the club for hours before they showed up. Security footage later showed he'd arrived in a taxi just after 5 that afternoon, almost 5 hours before Adrianne and Jay walked through the door. He'd spent all that time watching the room. His name was Thomas Hampton Frederick. He was 23. Sometime after midnight, Adrianne decided she was done for the night. Maybe she was tired, maybe she was just ready to leave. She told Jay she was heading home. Jay wanted to hang around a little longer. They said their goodbyes inside the club. It was about 1:30 in the morning. Outside, security cameras caught what happened next. Adrianne stepped out of Diamond Dolls and headed for home. The walk back to Pinecone Circle was just over a mile, nothing she had not done before that day. But this time, as she made her way through the parking lot, Thomas Frederick followed her. The footage caught him as he caught up to her, carrying a black jacket Adrianne had left behind at the bar. He handed it back, just a simple, polite gesture on camera. They spoke briefly. Then, you see them together, heading into the night in the direction of her apartment. At approximately 3:30 a.m., Jay returned to the house. When he walked through the door, the apartment was quiet. There was no sign of Adrienne, but there was something else, a stillness that didn't feel quite right. The bathroom door was closed. Jay called out, no answer. He opened the bathroom door. Adrienne Robert was on the floor. She was wearing only a bra. Her eyes, by one account, were open, but she was not breathing. Jay called 911 immediately. Paramedics arrived at the scene and did what they could. It was too late. Adrienne Robert was pronounced dead in the early hours of July 14, 2012. She was 29 years old. She was 24 hours away from moving into a new home with the man she loved. When investigators from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office arrived and began processing the scene, they found no signs of forced entry. Whoever had come through that door had either been let in or had entered alongside Adrienne. But there were unmistakable signs of a violent struggle. Adrienne had bruises on her body. A toilet seat was broken. The apartment had been disturbed. The medical examiner would later determine that Adrienne had been stabbed once in the upper left chest, the blade penetrating 4.5 inches, deep enough to be fatal. Prosecutors would reveal at trial that she had also been sexually assaulted. Two things were missing from the apartment when deputies arrived. A section of the fitted bedsheet had been cut out and removed, a deliberate act, one that investigators immediately recognized as an attempt to eliminate biological evidence. And Adrienne's car, a distinctive bright orange Jeep. It was found later that same day, parked at a strip mall in the neighboring city, not far from where she had lived. Whoever had done this had not simply acted in a moment of rage. They had tried to cover their tracks. They had tried to make sure there was nothing left behind. They made a mistake. Sheriff Bob and his team knew from the start they had to piece together Adrienne Robert's final hours, and every detail mattered. They kicked things off with the security cameras. Diamond dolls had plenty of them, covering the club inside and out. Investigators spent hours combing through the footage. There was Adrienne, there was Jay, then there was another man, someone they didn't recognize. The camera caught him arriving much earlier in the night, well before Adrienne and Jay showed up. Later, he chatted with them. The key moment was around 1:30 a.m. The man followed Adrienne out, handed her a black jacket that she left behind, and the two of them walked away together. One problem: no one in the bar knew who he was. He hadn't been there before. The footage gave them a good look, but that wasn't enough to put a name to him. That changed when they went through the tape over and over again. Investigators zeroed in on a shot from just after 5 p.m., the man arriving in a taxi. That gave them something to run with. They reached out to the cab company, who checked their records. The fare had been booked with a cell number. When detectives ran the number, something popped up. It was already on file with law enforcement, connected to an earlier suspicious person report from Clearwater Police. Now they had their name, Thomas Hampton Frederick. No criminal history in Florida, but now they had a name, and the face in the footage lined up. Still, the case wasn't airtight. Recognizing someone on camera and getting their phone number isn't court proof. DNA was the missing piece, and they needed it quietly. Frederick couldn't know he was being watched, so they watched and waited. On about the 10th day, Frederick was in a car, rolled down his window, and tossed out a lit cigarette. After he drove off, deputies swooped in and picked it up. Most people wouldn't have thought twice about that cigarette butt, but to the detectives, it was gold. In the crime lab, analysts compared the DNA from the cigarette to what they'd found on Adrienne's body and the mattress under the cut section of sheets. It matched. On July 25, 2012, after 11 days that Adrienne Robert was found dead in her bathroom, Sheriff Bob announced the arrest of Thomas Hampton Frederick. Deputies located him near the intersection of Bryan Dairy Road and took him into custody without incident. During the process of that arrest, Frederick reportedly told deputies where he had discarded the knife he had used and the section of bedsheet he had cut away, though investigators later indicated they were still working to recover those items. A charge of first-degree murder was filed. A charge of grand theft auto was added for the theft of Adrienne's orange Jeep. Thomas Frederick stood trial in Pinellas County in January 2014, nearly 18 months after the night he followed Adrienne Robert home from Diamond Dolls. By this point, Frederick was 25 years old. The The trial was held in Largo, Florida, before Judge Thane Covert. Prosecutor Noel Festa handled the state's case, assisted by Assistant State's Attorney Kendall Davidson. Frederick was represented by Public Defender Lori Mahine. From the very beginning, both sides agreed on a narrow set of facts. Frederick had been at Diamond Dolls that night. He had met Adrienne and Jay at the bar. He had gone back to Adrienne's townhouse with her. And he had killed her. The dispute was over what happened inside those walls. In her opening statement, Prosecutor Noel Festa walked the jury through the timeline of July 13 into July 14. She told them that Frederick, who had been at that strip club for 8 full hours before Adrienne walked out, had watched her. She argued that he had walked her home, that he had sexually assaulted her in her bedroom while holding a steak knife to her eye, and that he had then stabbed her in the chest, leaving her to die on the bathroom floor before attempting to destroy evidence and flee in her stolen vehicle. Public Defender Lori Mahine offered the jury a different story. She told them that the sexual encounter between Frederick and Adrienne had been consensual and that afterward, something had gone wrong. Public Defender Lori argued that Adrienne had become agitated and had picked up a knife, going after Frederick. A struggle ensued, she said, and Adrienne was stabbed as Frederick fought her off. Public Defender Lori argued that he was acting in self-defense. The defense pointed out that Adrienne was taller than Frederick and outweighed him. A neighbor, who had seen the pair walking toward the townhouse together that night, would testify that nothing about the scene appeared out of the ordinary. What the defense could not overcome was the weight of the physical evidence. DNA consistent with Frederick's had been recovered not only from Adrienne's body, but also from the mattress pad beneath her bed. Beneath the section of sheet Frederick had deliberately cut away and removed. His palm print was found on the exterior frame of the bathroom door. In a recorded interview with detectives, Frederick had admitted that he had sex with Adrienne and that he killed her. He had told investigators where to find the kitchen knife he had used and where he had wrapped it, inside the piece of bedsheet he had taken with him. He had also taken the roommate Jay's cell phone and Adrienne's car keys. Prosecutor Festa addressed the defense's self-defense argument directly during closing arguments. She told the jury that there was no way Adrianne Robert could have been a physical threat in those final moments. The evidence indicated she had been vomiting in the bathroom, a woman in no condition to attack anyone. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. On January 31, 2014, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on the charge of first-degree murder. The Grand Theft Auto conviction followed. Judge Thane sentenced Thomas Hampton Frederick to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As deputies led Frederick out of the courtroom, he turned toward his family in the gallery. He waved to them and said he loved them. His mother and relatives called back that they loved him too, and told him not to worry. At the same time, across the room, Adrianne Robert's mother was pressing a photograph of herself and her daughter to her chest. Adrianne Robert's parents, Mark and Lori Robert, had made the journey from Maine to Florida to be present for every day of that trial. Mark Robert later told reporters that it was nearly impossible to sit in the same room as Thomas Frederick and contain what he was feeling. He said Frederick showed no sympathy, no remorse, not during the trial, not even when the jury read the verdict aloud. Instead, he described Frederick as having acted, in his words, very cocky. When the verdict came and the sentencing followed, Mark Robert did not hold back. He said his daughter's killer was going to be incarcerated and behind bars like the monster that he was. He said that the verdict would not bring Adrienne back, but that justice had been served. He said that he and Lori wept when those words were read in open court, that they simply let themselves feel, after all those months of holding everything together, what the loss of their daughter had actually cost them. He said that what struck him most, even in those difficult days, was the quality of the people Adrienne had surrounded herself with. Her friends, her fiancé Justin's family, all of them had traveled down or reached out or simply shown up. They told us that if we needed something, anything, that they'd be there for us. And they were, Mark said. Then he added something that said everything about who Adrienne was, that the quality of her friends was a direct reflection of her. She just loved to live life, he said in the days following the verdict. Her smile was infectious. It's sad that we'll never see that again. Mark Robert also acknowledged something profound, that he and Lori had deliberately chosen not to hear the medical examiner's testimony about Adrienne's injuries during the trial. He said simply, "I didn't want to know what she went through." And then, quietly, he added, "From what I gather, she fought very hard. And I'm glad she did." Frederick sits behind bars at Hardy Correctional Institution in Bowling Green, Florida, locked away for life with no chance of parole. His family wants to fight the conviction, but so far, nothing's changed. Adrienne found a career she cared about, built her circle of friends, and started a relationship that was on the verge of something permanent. No one who loved her has forgotten. She was one day away from a whole new life. The only reason we know how her story ended, and the only reason Thomas was caught and convicted, is because a camera was rolling, and because the people who loved her refused to let her story fade away. Her father didn't hide behind big words. He spoke like a dad who lost his daughter. It doesn't bring Adrienne back, but justice was served today. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in real investigations, shocking cases, and justice served, please subscribe, leave a comment, and join us as we explore more true crime stories.